This is the 26th time that I come to the United States to work in the Spiritist community. And I've had the great joy of participating of the founding of at least 3 Spiritist centers. This one, the SCR in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and the Mount Vernon Spiritist Center in New York, and many other Spiritist homes where I was very much embraced, and I was able to learn a lot about interpersonal relationships. With our home has Jesus Goncalves as a mentor, indicated by Chico Xavier, the Spiritist Brazilian medium. We've also had the orientation of Divaldo Franco. I spent a week with him in Bahia, Brazil. He also did a lecture in our Spiritist home there, even though it's a very small place compared to a lot of Spiritist centers where he does lectures. Goncalves was also Chico Xavier in different incarnation, and Divaldo Franco was his secretary, and therefore his connection to our Spiritist home. We have about 160 volunteers, a lot of courses, all only from the Spiritist doctrine. We follow strictly the codification, the Spiritist codification, and we don't allow for other types of work inside our Spiritist home that are not works of the doctrine of the Spiritists. Speaking of Spiritist homes, in a Spiritist home and a Spiritist center is sometimes a little bit complicated. So from the beginning, we always say that we're not here to modify or to change the workflow of any Spiritist center. No, we're not here to orient, to direct you in any certain way. Every work, none of the work is a suggestion to do this or to do that. It's what I'm bringing here is the basis from the codification, and some basis that we can bring as an orientation through Bezerra de Menezes and other spirits, so that we can create our Spiritist home one that would be really to assist those are seeking the Spiritism, and especially to clarify and to console hearts. So these are the primary purposes, to clarify and to console. So we will go through the slides a little bit faster. We always do more in larger seminaries, but since this also for workshops, but since this is just a lecture, so we'll speed through them a little bit more.
May the Spiritists be first to take advantage of the benefits that Spiritism brings, and that may they unleash amongst them the kingdom of harmony, which will resplendent in future generations. May the Spiritists be talking about, this is the Spiritist Review by Allan Kardec. Who is Allan Kardec referring to? He's referring to us. May we be the first to learn the benefits that Spiritism brings. In your mind, when we read that the benefits that Spiritism brings to you, what are those benefits? Or, since the time that you've embraced Spiritism to this day, what have been the benefits that you've been able to bring to yourself, to your life, as a result of the doctrine of the spirits. We're not talking about Spiritist movement or Spiritist center. We're talking about the doctrine of the spirits, which is immutable. But movement and center, you can change and alter because there's progress. But everything that is in the doctrine of the spirits no longer attends to our needs in our present reincarnation. So we think Moses brought the first revelation, Jesus brought the second, and the doctrine of the spirits brings the third one to a collective. So now the work is for all of us. So comes Chico Xavier with 400 books to bring sustenance to this doctrine. And after that comes Joanna de Angelis, who brings the concepts of the same doctrine in the way Chico brought through Emmanuel, mainly, more than 10,000 texts and 400 plus books by many spirits. Joanna de Angelis comes to ask us, how much of Jesus do you have in you? So here comes self-knowledge. So in our current days is the immersion, the diving into ourselves to really find out who we truly are in the personality that we are incarnated in. I am not beta, I am temporarily beta. I am a spirit. I am immortal. So I'm going to need to understand that once and for all and not limit myself and my life to only this current life. And this is one of the benefits that Spiritism brings to us. It's this understanding that life does not end right here, right now. It continues. So why do we attach ourselves with material things? So that comes our issues, because the doctrine is pure philosophy. It's questionings. You ask, you inquire. Kardec, in the first book of Spiritism, is the Spirit's book, which is 1019 questions and complementary answers. So these are questions which we're going to continue to ask precisely so that we can learn or come to the conclusions of who we truly are. Do we know who we truly are? So we need to begin to work on that so that I can extract the benefits, so that we can implement a realm of harmony. Look what Kardec is saying. The benefits that Spiritism brings to me gives me the possibilities to implement on earth a realm of harmony. What is my responsibility in that? What is your responsibility in that? Why do we still live in such disharmony? Are we truly utilizing and truly benefiting ourselves from Spiritism as Kardec suggests? That's up to each and every one of us to ask ourselves. Men and women have arrived at a period where the sciences, arts, and industry have reached a limit up until this point unknown. If the enjoyments that they've extracted from it satisfy their material life, they also leave a void in the soul. Everything, all of them aspire to something better. They dream with better institutions. They want life, they want happiness, equality, and justice. If we can take this sentence and work in this sentence, we can stay a whole incarnation just on this sentence. So let's dive deeper into it. I've learned to study the doctrine of the spirits to this day, but recently, with more calmness and tranquility, with no rush. Spiritists want to read like 300 books. It's like a compulsion, like I used to have, to suck, and read. So when the book finishes, we ask, what is the book about? Oh, hold on, let me see if I can remember. Because we read so quickly and didn't reflect in that what we just read. We didn't absorb, that it just flies by. So we take advantage of these moments to allow the teachings of the doctrines of the spirits to aim at the needs of our spirits, of who we are. Where is in the spirit that I am the need of those words? What do they want to tell me? What do they awaken in me? Or where do they awaken in me the wills? He's talking about us. We've arrived at a moment. What are we currently witnessing on the planet? Technology, medicine, science have done huge advancements. Incredible. In every field. We are in a process of trials and expiations towards regeneration. So things must change, and every process of change has to have this chaos in order for us to go through it. That we see this in the planet where so many of us think it's much worse now, but actually so much better. So today we have the internet. We have democratized knowledge. Is that as a creation by God? No. The spirits were already doing that in the spirit realm. So they were first doing that there, then reincarnated on earth and brought that here. Everything that we are experiencing. I'm going to be 70 years old. When I was a child, TV was black and white, if we had it. It would be a valve that would take 5 hours to get the signal. It was surreal. How can you imagine that at 15, 20 years of age, that we would one day use cell phones? That we would know what's happening in Japan in real time. Back then, a news flash would take a month or two from Japan to arrive to us. Things were much different. We are currently experiencing this great moment of transformation of the planet. So here comes another questioning. You question yourself constantly, to reflect constantly. What is my role in this? Not physical role. What is my intimate, inner role? How am I processing in myself these transformations? Am I just watching this from the bleachers? Don't I have to do anything? Or is it all the government's responsibility? What am I doing? So these are the questions that we must begin to elaborate within ourselves. In our Spiritist Center, all the study groups are made not with teachers. All of them are together. There's one coordinator that coordinates the study, but the experiences are shared. So to read a question like this in some study group, one person shares their relationship to it. The relationship of that person to the saying might help another person who might be shy or who is traumatized or who doesn't want to express, and another person may bring the answer. And so in that way we go together. It's the doctrine of the spirits is a collective. It's no longer one person that dictates rules, dictates laws. We've already gone through those periods in history. So they leave a void in the soul. This void in the soul today is, in a way, very much painful for all of us. The indexes of suicide have increased dramatically. People that have not been able to get in touch with themselves, with what's happening, they don't have content, this inner content, and they end up taking their own lives. And certainly, all of us, we are aspiring towards something better. So if we're aspiring towards something better, what am I effectively doing? Do I dream with better institutions? We are spiritists, and we are in a spiritist center. Do we dream with a better institution? This is an institution. I'm an institution where people respect one another, when one help one another. Am I strengthening myself in relationship to that? They want life. It's amazing that God has offered us the greatest gift He could offer to us, which is life. So I am alive, I'm living, because I'm going to live forever, but I'm having the opportunity of reincarnation, and I am chained to this body of flesh, living on earth at this moment. And according to the spirits, there is a huge line of spirits awaiting reincarnation, and I am currently reincarnated. So here we pose the question: if I want life, what am I doing with my life? What are my priorities? Am I meeting the demands of the matter more than the needs of the spirit? This is a question in the United States that's of vital importance. The challenges of spiritists here in the United States must be greater than anywhere else on the planet, I think, because it's the most capitalist country on earth, and we are humans. We carry registers. It's not by chance that we are here, either sightseeing or living here. Something in the universe wants to offer something for us to be here. So that's what I need to seek to find out. The equality and justice. We are living moments of great prejudices. Although many people say that they're not prejudiced, all we need is something that happens within our families to show that, yes, we do have prejudice after all. So I don't want to live in a place or in an environment where there is prejudice, where justice doesn't exist. But it's not my justice. It's the justice of man and God's justice. If I don't know how to deal with man's justice, or with human justice, how am I going to deal with God's justice? So it's not by chance that we have to live under laws so that we can train ourselves. So if I am an obedient, law-abiding being, if I follow the instructions and the rules that are given to me so that I can live in society, then it becomes easier to follow the laws of the Creator. But how to reach all of that with all the addictions of society, and most of all with selfishness? Have you asked yourselves? I ask myself all the time, am I selfish? When I ask myself these things, first I blank out. Why? Because it's difficult for us to lie to ourselves. These addictions, these errors. No, he's selfish, but me? No, I'm not. But when I begin to not worry about others, what he is or isn't, that it's his problem and his problem alone to solve, that I need to worry about myself only if I am selfish or not. So we're entering this time, this period, when we don't need to worry about other people's lives, which we have been doing for such a long time. I always want to change the other person, but not change myself. I'm going to have to speed up here. It's necessary that we bring the Spiritist thought in its basis of Kardec in order to strengthen our union. We are in a Spiritist center. We are with Spiritists, and we've adopted for our lives. We've embraced this doctrine because we believe in it, right? It's very common, for example, it's very usual. I've been in this doctrine for 40 years. It's very common for people to say, I don't think Bida is a Spiritist, because Spiritists stand apart. They stand out from other people. I don't need to tell people that I'm a Spiritist. I have a need to show that I am a Spiritist. So I need to change my behavior. I need to change my way of being, which up until this point has led me to need to reincarnate in a planet of trials and expiations. If I'm here today, it's because my baggage is horrific. So if somebody sees a spirit around me, please pretend you didn't see it. I always ask God to take me very far away when I disincarnate so that they can't see my perispirit, because that's going to show clearly who I am. So I'm going to slowly but surely cleansing it. So the doctrine teaches us that education is a sum of habits that are acquired. If I am who I am, it's because I've acquired these habits in the past, in my previous lives. If I'm not happy with the way I am seeing myself today, I need to acquire new habits. So here's where we're going to talk about the Spiritist thought on its basis of Kardec. In a Spiritist center that doesn't study Kardec is not a Spiritist center. We see that a lot. I travel to so many Spiritist centers. Sometimes I give 4 or 5 lectures per week here and other countries, Europe, and we notice that some people say Kardec is a bit outdated. Let's study something else. There's someone over there with a book from... study that at home. I study everything. But in the center, I study Kardec, or the doctrine of the spirits. But I like to learn, so I read everything. I like to evaluate. This serves me. This doesn't serve me. But inside the Spiritist center, if we've embraced this cause, then otherwise we can open an ecumenical center that anything can come in. Just don't say it's a Spiritist center. Allan Kardec warned in the bylaws of the Spiritist Society of Paris that the Spiritist Center has as an objective the study. He mentions the word study all the time. Study of all the phenomena related to the Spiritist manifestations and its applications. Where does this apply? In the moral, physical, historical, and psychological sciences. Who has read chapter 30 or 31 of the Medium's book? There we can see the bylaws of the Parisian Society. A Spiritist center that hasn't familiarized itself with it should. This is the first Spiritist center in the planet founded by Kardec. So we need to take that as our basis. So these are... So it's not recommended to have political questions or controversial questions about religion or social economy. And so it's for us not to raise those controversies within the center. This is right, this is wrong, this is how I want it. This doesn't help what we have intended to do inside a Spiritist house. So we don't have to argue here over social politics or economy of the countries. That's from outside these doors. That's not inside the center. Yeah, outside we can chat at home. Let's go have dinner. Let's talk about the situation happening in our world. In our Spiritist Center, I'm very careful with the question of setting a precedent. So if she can, then everybody can. Why is she the only one that can? So we need to be aware of what happens inside the Spiritist Center, because if one can do it, then everybody can do it. So we must be attentive to that. Because sometimes one or another person is in that moment being an instrument for that house or that work to crumble. And this is happening. Okay? 3x4. This is happening a lot. Sorry. This is happening a lot. Idiomatic expressions.
We're living, and as it seems, we'll be living for a long time in a world of depressives and antidepressives. The existential emptiness or void is a fruit of the absence of values and of a stronger purpose in life. Conducts millions of people to paths that are torturous, filled with emotional and mental diseases. I'm a psychologist, and I also attend in the fraternal counseling in the Spiritist Center, and it's unbelievable what's happening. Unbelievable. The amount of the depression, according to the statistics. There was a research done here in the United States before 9/11. There was a research that a few million people suffered from depression. And after a while, after 9/11, they did another research, 10 times that amount of people compared to the first research that are suffering from depression. And from then on, I was just in Switzerland, first world country, wonderful country. I was marveled by the beauty and all of this and all of that, but an existential emptiness, a void. People have everything, but having everything is in reference to what? To the material well-being. Because I am in a planet that gives priority and privilege to the material well-being. So if I have all the material privileges in a place that values that, then I feel satisfied. But I can have 30 cars and 50 apartments, this and that, and none of it will fulfill this existential emptiness, because it'll come to a moment that I'll have everything that I want, materially speaking, but I don't have anything inside myself. And we enter in this process of depression and antidepressants. We've never sold so many medications for depression. We attend to many people in this case, in the situation, and depressions that drive people to suicides. People cannot leave their homes. Really strong levels of depressions, horrific. In the trip of 1868, Allan Kardec brings this passage to us. I put in utmost importance the consolation that's necessary to offer to those who suffer, to encourage, to uplift the courage of those who are falling, to take men away from their passions, from the desperateness, from the suicide, keep them away from the life of crime. Allan Kardec is speaking to the Spiritist home. We can validate, we can verify this. We assist people to help those who come to seeking aid in the Spiritist Center. Their Spiritist Centers, people come in and they watch a lecture and they leave. And none of the volunteers of the home speak to anyone. No one seeks the Spiritist Center because it's in fashion or to have fun. No one seeks a Spiritist home to find money. People seek a Spiritist Center because of this, because of the desperateness that they find themselves in, because they don't understand certain questions in which they're living, certain dilemmas. So then you offer a lecture, and we offer fraternal counseling, we offer some passes, a series of things. But what Kardec puts for us is that the Spiritist Center, if it doesn't console and clarify, then there's something wrong. Enlightens, consoles and enlightens. So what we are bringing forth here, it's not a critic or a judgment. There's a little bit of a back and forth, some fighting. Oh, which Spiritist Center has the most amount of people, who has the biggest congress, who brings more people from other locations, so on and so forth. And it's turning into a big spectacle with applauses, so on. Where is the consolation? Where is enlightening? Which is something completely contrary to that which we come defending because we're following Kardec. Charging exorbitant amounts for people to come to lectures. So we're speaking of reality that what happens in Brazil. I can't speak for the United States, but I see a lot of that happening in Brazil. Unfortunately, it's really unfortunate. So people with less financial conditions are not able to attend to certain events because it's charged and it's very expensive in order to be a part of it. And where's the consolation? The worries, the concerns are different. It's more important to serve Mammon than God, when the gospel tells us complete opposite of that. So where is the gospel? Before the complexity of the contemporary world, we'll see in the perspectives for the future comes forth the necessity of the workers, of the Spiritist volunteers, to prepare themselves with knowledge and firmness in their convictions, such that they'll be capable to face with certainty and efficiency the challenges of the contemporary life. Am I ready? Could it be so that I'm ready to assist others? Now here you go through a very different reality, everyday life, than that we do in Brazil. Here you experience the reality of people who've been through wars and have consequences of that. Over there we see a lot of urban violence, gun violence, so on and so forth. Rapes in communities. This, a lot of people know that that's the kind of things that happens in our country. Is it possible that I'm ready to receive a 12-year-old child who is pregnant of her father or of her brothers? Am I ready to receive that? Or am I going to be shocked? What do I need to do? Kardec says the first thing I need to do is to console, but in order for me to console, I need to have the knowledge. I can't be, oh, poor thing, so on and so on, because I'm going to make her condition even bigger, make her feel humiliated. So I need to have a firmness in my conviction. Have a seat here, let's talk. Why do you think we always take from the other? Have you learned this from Socrates? We take from the other, we extract from the other. Why do you think this happened to you? And from that which she brings forth is that we can work with, and not what I think she went through or she didn't go through with my judgments, with my criticisms, and so on. No, I need to be ready. But in order for me to be ready, I need to have the knowledge. How do I get this knowledge? Studying. If I don't study, I'm not going to be able to have this firmness and conviction of speaking that which I can tell her, who's seeking for consolation and to be enlightenment. Well, I can tell according to the gospel, there's this question. Now, do you know the Spiritist book? Oh, look, listen, there's this question here. Here, this is what it says. What do you think about this? How do you understand this? What does this say to you? So I'm before a spirit. The doctrine is from spirit to spirit. And is going to seek for their registers to give them, to provide for them that which they need. The matter of question is, am I ready or not for this? The Spiritist home, besides doctrines, the vigilance in terms of the doctrines of always, we need to invest in the improvement of the coexistence in order for the fraternity and the respect to never leave the group. There are Spiritist home in Rio de Janeiro that I've given lectures in, that they divided into two groups. One group went to the first floor, the other group went to the second floor. And one group sued the other one. So they can separate and kick out the other one from the building. Can you imagine the kind of energy that's in there? Where is the knowledge? Where is the consolation? Is this a Spiritist center? It can't be a Spiritist center. Right? In other words, if we don't take care of this, improve our coexistence, we're human beings. We're here in a planet of expiations and trials. Being in this planet is like being in a boat. And all of us are inside this boat. There are people that are rowing normally, going on with their lives slowly, getting a little bit of knowledge, consoling, and so on. There are others that are stuck, that are just not doing anything. Well, the other ones are rowing out. I'll be all right. I'm going to take a rest here. And there are others that are rowing backwards, making things more difficult. In which category do you find yourself? That's the question. Where do I find myself? Because it's always the fault of that one or this one. Always somebody else to blame. I am wonderful. As a matter of fact, I am, indeed. just so we can laugh a little bit. In the Spiritist center, it's not possible to have a communion of thoughts. And therefore, it's not possible to have calmness or embrace and introspection. There should not be an incessant predomination of the spirit and of opposition and controversies without a certain amount of homogeneity. Of course, we're not going to get here and pretend to be saints or little angels. Me, I, for instance, I'm not like that. Oh, my dear child. Oh, Jesus bless you. Oh, this and this. I'm not this kind of person. If there are people out there like that, I think that's beautiful. But I'm not like that. So, I know how I am. Each person knows how they are. But there should not be a predomination of constant oppositions. These little arguments, when we start to think about it, they're so silly that we don't notice that we could be instruments of other spirits that are trying to interfere to make things, stir up issues. Stir the pot. It's not enough to say that you're a spiritist. It says it in the Spiritist magazines. We don't need to start new things. All we have to do is follow Kardec. It's not enough to say I'm a spiritist. Those who speak from their hearts can prove it through their acts, not preaching anything but the good, respect of the laws, charity, tolerance, and benevolence for all and all. Of course, we're not in this phase yet, and the Spiritists are not concerned with this. You know what their concern is? The effort that I'm making in order to have this. The effort. All of us know that we're not going to wake up and be angels tomorrow or saints just because we're Spiritists. But when I make an effort through all these points that are made here, the Spirits invest massively. I can say that I'm a proof of that because my life is this. So they assist me much more than I deserve so. My family, in a way, such that my family seems like it feels like they're under anesthesia. Everything is at peace so that I can take care of what I need to take care of. And they understand perfectly well. They don't create any issues surrounding the work that I do. Why? Because I live, or I search to live, intensively this. Because as I said, it's not enough to say I'm a spiritist. I need to show that I am. Let us not lose this from our sight. If we make efforts, they invest in you. You can be certain of that. In order for society to One moment. In order for the Spiritist Society to be aware of its work together with the collectivity of humanity, their volunteers and students needs to live in a certain line of productive and harmonious work together in a firm purpose of inner growth. I would be a little more hesitant when there's something happening over there. When we start to notice, if you are studying, if you're working, if you're volunteering, if you're making efforts to modify yourself, then in any location you can begin to feel the energy change. If you're next to a person this way, you can feel the energy because you begin to purify through and from the clarification, the enlightening and the consolation of the work. A posture of authenticity.
Running away from the masks and the idealized models of perfection. In vigilance will offer us, to all of us, the image of what we truly are, without guilt or fantasy-like representations that may draw us away from concrete reality. We can only change inside of us that which we can truly see in us. Let's put it on our fridge, right? Put it on our mirror, the things we need to change. And the more we read, the more we're going to bring it within us. Guilt is a huge wall. Guilt doesn't exist. We put this as like an excuse for us not to do what we're supposed to do. I am so guilty, I'm suffering because I have guilt. And so on. Since time is flying by, in a Medium's book, in the 29th chapter, item 340, bad spirits connect with groups in the same way that they connect with individuals. They connect themselves primarily, first, to the weaker ones, to the more accessible ones, trying to make them their instruments, and gradually they involve them and involve the group. So I ask myself, how much am I weakened spiritually that I could potentially be serving as an instrument to disaggregate or disharmonize the group? It doesn't matter. That's of what other people are doing. It's mine. The issue is with me. How much am I spiritually weakened, and that may make me an instrument of disaggregation or disharmony? This is a question I need to ask myself. But we always keep focusing on the other and the external. We always go to the external. We never go to the internal. So everything is from within outward. It's inside the Spiritist center, outward. From within yourself to outside yourself. Under the empire of personal invigilance, some Spiritist workers open up gaps that are very dangerous for group influences. To be merely seeking the guilty ones or responsible ones is not going to bring results. It behooves us to reflect about sharing of those responsibilities. Even if I think that other people, or is his fault or it's his responsibility for what took place, I also need to place myself as partly responsible for what took place. If I don't do that, then I am more than someone else. When in fact, we need to share the responsibilities. It becomes easier to solve the problems. Allan Kardec, in the speech he made in the Spiritist Society, would always observe the need for moderation, goodwill, moderation, common sense, and balance. Moderation, common sense, and balance. Indispensable tools for personal harmony as well as institutional harmony. Otherwise, we get irritation, jealousy, gossip, indignation, susceptibilities, disputes of positions amongst others, which make the structures of defense in the Spiritist house weaker, more fragile. So Kardec made this speech. So if Kardec gave this speech, in which way am I experiencing this? As a Spiritist worker of a Spiritist house, in which way am I experiencing this? He never tired from observing the need for moderation, common sense, and balance. I see the doctrine of the spirits as common sense all the time. So we have to arrive to all of these questions. We have to look for the common sense in the issue. If my opinion, or if what I put out as something to be adopted at our center, if people don't consider it as common sense, then I need to be satisfied, because other questions will appear. I can't harbor susceptibilities. This destroys Spiritist centers. Ever since our center opened, we've been working on that, susceptibilities. The minute you enter the home, you begin to work on that. Susceptibilities is like the rust and the mold that slowly eats away. Before you know it, it consumes everything. roadmap of values in order to remove the pernicious influences in the Spiritist groups. This is found in the mediums group. How many times have we sat down to study and to read this in order to remove the pernicious influences from the Spiritist groups? When they say influences like that, we're not just referring to the spirits discarnate, but we're also referring to incarnates. So what's required? Perfect communion of points of view and feelings, reciprocal cordial behavior amongst all the members, absence of all feelings that are against true Christian charity, one wish to instruct and improve oneself through the teachings of the spirits and by taking advantage of their counsels. So we mentioned that in some Spiritist centers, how many people have gotten in touch with this? They get frightened, they get surprised, they get shocked. No, it's a roadmap. He's giving us a huge tip here. And we insist on persisting on our opinion and what I want, on what I think. In the general landscape of Spiritist centers, it's not uncommon to find companions who inadvertently or intentionally place their personal interests above the objectives of the Spiritist doctrine, causing conflicts in the groups as they impose their own way of thinking. In the general landscape of Spiritist centers, and this has been happening a lot. It's interesting for us to notice how the Spiritist doctrine is spreading. It's not spreading through love. It's gonna get there for sure, which certainly in the way it's currently spreading is the way that they have found to spread. Because the way it's spreading, it's through disagreements, with fighting. In Rio, I didn't accept what the directors have said. Okay, I'm gonna leave and open another group. Okay, I don't open. I go and I open another group. And all the centers begin like that. I can't find a Spiritist center that says, okay, this doctrine is amazing. We're going to open a Spiritist center out of love. But this is easy for us to understand. We are on a planet of trials and expiation, so that's the way that they have found to disseminate the Spiritist doctrine. So there are people that fight and go here or go there, and then after some time they begin to unite. They begin to go into each other's homes, begin to do work in each other's homes. We notice clearly that that was a mean of disseminating the doctrine. There are disputes. I talk in Rio. Well, I can't speak from other places because I don't know. But in Rio, there are disputes. Which is the bigger house, which one has more people, who does more of this. So you're not happy? Okay, do another group. How wonderful. Keep multiplying. Keep fighting. So if that's the only way to spread it, then later we'll come to an agreement. It's crucial that every Spiritist knows clearly what are the objectives of Spiritism. It's not about seeking a personal answer based on the famous guessing game. May one find in the works of Kardec the answer for such a question. So I don't guess anything. The doctrine of the spirits is what teaches us how to think about this or that way. Every day, the experience brings us the confirmation that difficulties and the mistakes, how many with many people in practice of Spiritism, they originate in ignorance from the principles of this science. So that's in the introduction of the medium's book. We have some questions. There's some. So everyday experience brings us the confirmation of that the difficulties and that the mistakes and that many people place their bets on the practice of Spiritism. We can't conceive of a Spiritist center which doesn't have a contract with us or a contact with the spirit realm, either in the mediumistic meeting, the obsession, or during the passes. But there must forge some kind of contact with the spiritual realm. How can it be a Spiritist house this way? So, when these activities take place alongside the spirit realm that helps that house, when we face those difficulties, the difficulties is in the ignorance of the principles of this science. So I can bring the example of our center. A person is only going to work in the disobsession meeting after 3 years of study in our center. A person is only going to give pass in our center after 1 year of studying in our center. For a person to be in the kitchen has also to be in courses. That's part of it. No one came to anybody's houses and said, come to our center. They came out of their own volition. So if you're going to come here, you have to follow the rules of the place. That's it anywhere. Go out there and try not to follow the rules of New York. What's going to happen? It's not going to work out. So there in the center, we prioritize that. Strive so that the activities are harmonious. Our center is 24 years old. We have 6 mediumistic tables for disobsession meetings. We work with disobsession. We don't work with mediumistic development. We work with spirit release, disobsession. The 6 tables, they have been there together for more than 15 years. Why? Because study was demanded of them. I don't want to study. To this day, in the 23 years, or in these 15 years that they've been together, only 2 people I've asked to leave the work because they didn't want to study. You know that. Remember that thing about precedent? If so and so don't study, then I'm not going to study. I didn't invent the rule. In Switzerland and in Paris, they asked me to do a work about disobsession, a study of disobsession, and also about irradiation. So I spoke to them about their inner bylaws regarding this work, and they were pretty impressed. Oh wow, that's pretty incredible. Yeah, these are the rules. So all of our work of disobsession is based in Divaldo Franco's books by the spirit Manuel Filomeno de Miranda. But all of our roadmap is based on those books. I was there in the Mansion of the Way. I saw their work. I witnessed how they did it. They went to our center, did workshops for a whole weekend to show how to carry out the activities. So the person arrives to a center with their mediumship out of balance, and I still see centers that do this. All right, the person comes, put them on the table. Then they're gonna go nuts or crazy. So if they come without balance, without harmony, call the medium over, stay here next to this person, going to help them. Go see the lectures. We have 200 meetings about the gospel. Our meetings have no other subject matter but the gospel. Saturday morning, there's 50 meetings per year. Mondays is therapy and treatment, but all of our public meetings center around the gospel. Why? It's the opening door for people. So if a person that enters and sees and hears the gospel, many of the things that they were anguished about begin to improve and work themselves out. Because Jesus, folks, because it's Jesus. It can't be any other way. So today I saw a video that Haroldo Dutra Dias, I don't know if it's arrived here yet, and he mentions with a lot of intensity that the Spiritist centers are more concerned with talking about the fluidic body of Jesus than to help people. What truly helps people? The gospel, Jesus. And this we don't part ways with. But some people sometimes arrive, well, can't you do a lecture about... No, you can't. You want to do it at home? Come, we'll go over to your place and we'll study it. But here in the center, no. Narcissism is one of the greatest adversaries of the sincere student. In it, we found a huge dose of pride, which takes the individual to see only himself, to satisfy his personal interests. Those are the people that place the satisfaction of their self-love, of their own self-love, above the doctrine. From this results tempestuous ideas and premature ideas, which end up generating conflicts in the coexistence. Look at the illustration. The Mr. Know-it-all, the King of Truth. The other day, Know-it-all. Nothing, I saw this sentence the other day, nothing matters to me more than being right all the time. So the person that says, oh, they're right about everything, they must be an elderly person that must be so wise, right? In order to criticize, it is necessary to place reasoning with reasoning, proof with proof. Is that possible without a deep knowledge of the subject matter that you're referring to? To criticize is very easy, but to criticize something, you gotta have something for you to refute. I just think this and that's it. Has to be this way and that's it. It's not so. So if I want to criticize, yes, I can criticize, but I will need to justify my criticism. I need to have something to talk about it, about why I'm criticizing. In the Spiritist groups, the criticism and the critics are very common. To criticize for criticism's sake has no value. It's necessary that criticism, when made, be filled with elements that can give it credibility and sustenance. Well, sometimes I criticize. I don't think this is correct because... But why? Because I can have two options. I can say because I said so, or I can say no, because I studied an aspect of the Spiritist doctrine that mentioned this, and that. So let us seek, or let us find this knowledge with other people that know more, so that we can clarify this. But to criticize for criticism's sake, no. There are people that please themselves in maintaining a dangerous criticism about the conduct or the work of the other people. With that, they try to affirm themselves psychologically in these behaviors and past conflicts that are present or remote from this, on that, or other reincarnations. This requires a work of liberation, deliverance. In order for them, those people, to affirm themselves and sustain themselves psychologically in a way that they can't let go of, then they they're not interested. They can try something else. They might try to destroy others. And that's an issue that has nothing to do with what's happening in the moment. When we need to understand that the person is psychologically ill and they need to come out or step down from their pedestal. Humility has come very far away from a person in this situation. And we find this kind of person inside the Spiritist Center. So what to do? Are we going to kick them out? Are we going to ignore them? Are we going to beat them up? 7th floor. Are we throw them off the window? Take care of the problem? What to do? Aren't we Spiritists? In my understanding, what lacks is not in the Spiritist house, but in the families, at work, in the street. What lacks is the dialogue, communication. Is becoming more and more scarce. The other day, we went sightseeing in Brooklyn, and we went to have a pizza. And next to us, there were 6 young men from Taiwan. They were chatting with us and they were eating pizza. The pizza was on the plate. All 6 of them were on their smartphone. I think they were giving messages to each other. You couldn't hear their voices. You couldn't see their eyes because all of them chained to their phones. And we need to have a dialogue, especially inside the Spiritist house. Thank God, in the Spiritist centers, there is an effort for people not to use their cell phones, because there's nothing to do with being in the center with the phone. When they're inadvertently taking their phone and begin to talk, some person needs to call their attention. This is not the moment. Let's be in concentration. Let's take advantage that you're here so that you can be in contact with the spiritual friends. Your spiritual mentor friend is trying to inspire you, and you're here in your phone, in your game, on WhatsApp.
And it's therefore the duty of all the sincere Spiritists to annul the ways of conflicts that could break apart, either from the small or in the large groups. Posthumous works of Allan Kardec. Everything is on there, guys. Everything is on there. All we need to do is study Kardec. There's no other way. If you want to be a Spiritist, or a Spiritist, and you want to be a volunteer in the Spiritist, or you want to direct a Spiritist center, you need to know Allan Kardec. There's no other way. Otherwise, you do something else. Right? Criticism must be done in an ethical way, in a way compatible with the idea of justice associated with the principle of fraternity. Create intrigues because of the argument of defending the truth is walking contrary to the ethical and of the doctrine, so that we go so far in defending this corrosive truth. Inserting in this behavior is affirming a dangerous argument in which the ends justifies the means. The means justifies the end. Dangerous argument. I'm gonna propose to you guys that the next time we sit in circle here and we meditate on this passage here, each one can share what their opinion is, what they understand from this, what they propose for themselves, and recognize in themselves whether you're a critic or not. We can spend 3 days in here, locked in here, talking about this, right? The susceptibilities and the dramas are real ghosts in a Spiritist center associated with the resentments, bitterness that contribute to weaken the human ties. It almost seems like a low blow, but it's the truth. Imagine that you're someone who's very resentful, and then you're someone who holds a lot of resentment and pain. Us. All of us. Right? And we're here listening to all of this, and we continue cultivating this in our hearts, in ourselves. And then we go outside, and we have a heart attack, and we discarnate. We go to the spiritual realm. Have we resolved this issue? No, we're going to take this with us. So, if you have these tendencies in terms of carrying resentment, resolve them for the love of God. Take care of it. If you have family members that in the past or in the present, not in the past life, in this life, if you have people that you've had some issues, some fights, some misunderstanding that's created inside of you, a feeling which isn't good, take care of that now. It's something that's very important for us to think a lot. The fact that the fact in itself is not so important compared to how I feel towards that fact. Is that clear? Are you thinking about this? Someone has a question. We said, in a little bit, we can ask questions. Fact in and of itself doesn't have so much importance compared to how I feel towards that fact. Because the fact remains, and how I feel about it, I take with me. So be careful with how you feel. Be mindful of what you feel. So if there's a fact of your life that happened with whomever it was, and you carry within yourself resentful and hurt towards it, take care of it. Because the fact, what happened, will stay behind. It's finished. Forget it. Now, how the sentiments, the resentments, I will take with me. And when I come back, this will express itself in other ways, in a disease or something else.
Posthumous works.
Posthumous work of the exaltation of the personality takes men to consider themselves above the others, judging themselves at superior rights, and it gets hurt with small things that in their point of view constitutes their own personal rights. A transgression of the personal right. This is an amazing work of Allan Kardec, the posthumous works. I consider the 5 books of Kardec as the final tests. You know, that we have the exams to get SATs or the exams to get into college, so on. For me, this is what I need to learn in order to go to the next planet of regeneration. And there are also those, Allan Kardec, from a lecture of Leon, there are even those whose susceptibility is taken to such an excess, such an extreme that I can't do this.
And they get upset over little things, even in the places that are destined for meetings, that when people don't place them in an evidence or in a high position. So if people complain, for example, when they are not invited to go somewhere and are placed in a 5-star hotel or a first-class trip, when we realize that our impulse is very strong to become upset very easily or to become hurt, bittered, let us find the resource of prayer immediately in order to administer mentally these corrosive feelings, which are the adversaries of our peace. Prayer is a valuable resource for the maintenance of the balance of the soul because it potentializes the thought towards the positive angles of life. seeking therefore the serenity of emotions. The true character of charity is modesty and humility, and consists in not seeing oneself superficially, or seeing superficially the mistakes of others, but in trying to bring out what is good and virtuous in our neighbor. Because if the human heart, is an abyss of corruption, there exists in it, in its occult, or in its hidden areas, the germs of some very, very good feelings, which is the living spark of the spiritual essence. Why not take advantage of that? The role of the director, moral authority, to give impulse, to stimulate the good works, to sustain everyone's goodwill that are falling, help with lift people up, help with counsels based on their experience, fix opinions about certain points that are gray, not to believe oneself infallible. May your group be the first to give the example of Christian virtues, because in this time of selfishness, it is in the Spiritist society that true charity can find its refuge. That must be so, my friends, in a group of true Spiritists. Spirit of Fenelon, Medium's book. And we're done.